fellow Sundowners and guests. We all learn from each other. As children, we learn from our parents, we learn from our culture, we learn from our teachers. And as speakers, we also learn from each other, from our fellow Sundowners, from other Toastmasters, and from professional speakers. But for me, by far, the most influential person ever was a Toastmaster by the name of Glenn Hagel. I sat through an educational session that he did at a conference in Saskatoon in 1985. He spoke for an hour and a half. I swear it was only 15 minutes. But Glenn had some very critical advice for me. He says, a speaker has only two things to offer that are unique. One are his funny stories or jokes, and the other are his life experiences. That's all he talked about for an hour and a half. So I took Glenn's advice. Now later on that afternoon, I was competing in the Humour speech contest after the banquet. And after this session, I decided I needed to find a place, a quiet place, where I could do a little bit of work, run through my speech a couple of times. And I was in this room, just going through it. And a lady walked in, and she said, "Sir, what are you doing?" "Oh, ma'am, I'm practicing my speech. I'm in a contest this afternoon later on, and I just want to run through it a couple of times." "Sir, why are you so nervous?" "Oh, I'm not nervous. No, I'm used to doing this." And she says, "In that case, sir, why are you in the ladies' washroom?" That is the kind of story that Glenn was referring to as a funny story, a humorous story. So when I got back, one of the first things I did is I started a collection of joke books. Many of them are new. Another good source for me was used bookstores. $1.50, you can get it. Internet is also another place that you can find good material. But what you want to do is you go through them and you mark the ones that make you laugh out loud. Because if they make you laugh, you're going to feel funny. You're going to feel funny when you tell them, and your audience is going to react that way. Now, the other thing that you need to remember with jokes is tailor them to your presentation. See, the story that I told tonight was originally, in one of those books, about a politician getting ready for a campaign speech. Wouldn't work well here, would it? But I was in a speech competition, and it fits in very nicely. So don't hesitate to change the name, change the situation, change the players in it, manipulate it to fit what you need. Now, the second area that Glenn advised us to start is to start a file of your own personal experiences. I have done that to date. I have a little over 100 pages, and many of them have not been entered yet. You see, when you share with your audience your experiences, you open yourself up. You share yourself. And when you, as a speaker, share yourself, the audience feels it. They identify with this. They empathize with you. You are simply like they, one-on-one. But another very, very beautiful thing about building in your own experiences is they work for you. You were there. You felt it. You know the look on the other person's face. You know how you felt about it. You know what color the tablecloth was. You know what color the shoes were that you wore. No one will challenge you. see, the other beautiful part about sharing your experiences is simply because it is yours. Your gestures come through. Your voice comes through. Let's look at Gary, for instance. A year ago, he would not speak in front of people. Last week, he did his 6th speech. And he brought his emotions with him. Because he showed it in his voice, he showed it in his gestures. Remember when he said his wife whispered to him? From there, his voice went to, "Oh my God!" And his gesture, yeah, it's like a dad losing, "I've lost her, the boys." And it was just Gary. And that's what you want to achieve as a speaker. And they don't have to be long stories. We used to drive a Volkswagen Beetle. I had 3 daughters and 2 back windows. The argument had always started. We were coming home from Sunday service one day, and there it was again. And finally I said, "Didn't you guys listen? Jesus said we're supposed to share. We're supposed to be kind to each other. We're supposed to understand." Silence. I was beginning to feel pretty good. Then my middle daughter pipes up and she says, "But Jesus didn't have brothers or sisters." So those little incidents can also illustrate what you need to do. And just remember, stories put kids to sleep, but stories wake adults up. So if you want to do anything, start building your files. And especially your own personal experiences. Because those stories will motivate your audience, and they will inspire your audience. And that is what will make the difference. Now, I know what you people are thinking. You're probably saying, "Okay, Bob, this is fine. How do you do it?" So I put together a speech that hopefully will demonstrate this. We have all sat through lectures on scientific topics that have totally put us to sleep. So tonight I'll take the ultimate challenge. I will try and inform you on a scientific topic. And the title to that speech is Why It Didn't Go Boom. Mr. Toastmaster, ladies and gentlemen, tonight I'm going to inform you about explosion-proof gas tanks. Exciting, isn't it? No? Oh. Well, I didn't think it was very exciting either until I had this little incident in my life. You see, I used to fly U-control model aircraft. And when we moved on to our acreage, the only open land had power lines over it. So one winter morning, about 8 o'clock in the morning, I decided to go out and brush a large area where I could fly my models. By 10 o'clock, I had quite a brush pile. And I thought, can't fly planes with a brush pile in the middle, so I got a gallon of gas, splashed about a third of it on the pile. Then I stepped back, put a stick into the gasoline, capped it, set it behind me, lit the stick, threw it into the pile, boom! Fire. I went on brushing. About half an hour later, it went out. Now, I'm not stupid. I wasn't going to go spray more gas on. I waited for about 5 hours. And then I was going to do it right. Took the rest of the gas, climbed up onto the pile, and I was going to sew it down properly. Suddenly, underneath me, I heard a rumble start. And it was like somebody tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Bob, this isn't the place to be." I jumped as hard as I could, rolled out, and the flames were 18 feet high. Had I slipped, I probably wouldn't be here today. But you know, there's always a good thing outside these things. The next 2 weeks, I didn't have to pluck my eyebrows. Let's just look at what happened. When I was dumping the gasoline on this pile, the stream would probably hit the first branch and split. And then each one of those would hit another branch and split, 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 until it got to the very ground where the spark was. By that time, there was nothing left but small droplets, I'm sure, and vapor. And that should have been the perfect bomb. But it didn't go boom. It just burst into flame. Why? I believe that I finally found my answer in one type of explosion-proof gas tanks. You see, if we take gasoline vapor and put it into any container, like a gas tank or a car cylinder, we introduce a spark. It explodes and bang! It drives the piston down and creates the energy in your motor. You have exactly the same sort of thing happening in a fuel tank. It's just a much bigger container. But an explosion-proof tank works completely differently, because when they manufacture it, they take very, very thin aluminum foil and they shred it. And then they loosely rumple it up and they fill the entire tank. So now your gasoline is in the bottom, you have vapor on top. And if you introduce a spark into this gas tank, ignition starts, but the tin foil in that area absorbs some of the heat until it melts. It slows down the reaction and it cools the reaction. And as the burn spreads, more aluminum is consumed in that process. So instead of an explosion, it simply begins to burn. Now, how did this work for me? I was standing on thousands and thousands of little twigs in that brush pile. All of them frozen green wood. So I believe what happened is when it ignited down there, these twigs absorbed some of the heat. And they didn't contribute to the combustion because they were green wood. So as that spread outward and upward, all these twigs were absorbing energy and cooling the reaction. And that is what gave me the 2 or 3 seconds that I needed to escape. Now, I don't know if you folks are convinced about how explosion-proof gas tanks work, but I know that I am. And believe me, I have no intention of proving it a second time. Mr. Goldsmith.